Welcome to our FY25 budget deliberations. It's July 10th, 2024. The time is 3 p.m. Attending this meeting are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Bill, did you make it on the line? And I expect Commissioner Brooks to join us shortly. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. We'll go ahead with the FY25 budget deliberations with our Finance Director, Brandy Falcon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. So today, really, my only goal is to get clarity on the COLA, if you want to do a COLA and what percentage, and then what you're thinking to do with health insurance, if you want to pass any of the costs off to the employee. And then if there was anything else, A, B, or C budget that any of you wanted to talk about, we can dive into that. But those are my goals today. And I know we got cut short at the meeting this morning, so I'm not sure if other electeds want to talk about the COLA again. That's my goal for today.
Okay. And then no matter where we end up today, we can still cut things on July 22nd, and then August 1st will be good.
Correct.
Okay.
The goal would be August 1st. We're balanced and pretty much ready to publish.
Okay. All right. Sheriff Norris, did you have any report from your lunch today?
No. Lunch was good. I had a chicken sandwich. Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, chicken sandwich and a salad. But no, it was good. I think Brandy.
Sure, I can go through. So
Idea.
basically, I think the proposal that the sheriff's office came up with was a 2.5% COLA. And in addition to the COLA for their professional staff, they'd like the board to consider giving them one extra step effective the beginning of the fiscal year. And I believe the prosecutor said he was okay with the 2.5% COLA.
That's true, Your Honor. I do that all the time.
I think you promoted her and gave her a raise.
Habits from being in court. That's true, Commissioners. I have a concern with the progress at least my office has made over the last 8 months recruiting and retaining people. If we don't continue to fund step increases and give COLAs, we're just going to revert back to where we were. And so I would like to see step increases approved. I would also like to see a COLA. And I know that HR suggested or recommended 3.5%. I would like to see 2.5%. I believe that would be the responsible thing to do. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Did you have a landing spot?
I'd be curious what the other electeds have to say.
Okay.
I mean, we sat down and talked about it this morning.
After this morning's conversation and some clarity provided by the board regarding the difference between the steps and the cost of living adjustment, I do in fact believe that a cost of living adjustment is appropriate. If you think about what that is supposed to accomplish, each and every year the Federal Reserve targets an inflation rate of 2%, and typically they're at or above that. So at a minimum, it should be 2%. I also believe that what we should do is not try to forecast what inflation is going to be, but what it has been. We can observe what it has been last year, and I think it's incumbent upon us to pass along that cost of living as reported as actual inflation and pass that on to the actual employees as a cost of living adjustment. The other thing I want to mention as it relates to the medical costs, one of the things that we can't lose sight of is that the cost of living adjustment or the cost of living increase is to pay for all things that have increased in price, which is medical cost. So I do believe that all employees should be participating in a greater extent the increase of medical costs. And that cost of living adjustment is designed to offset not only groceries and energy, gas, things like that, but medical expenditures. So whether we pick 2%, 2.5%, or 3%, I think it's probably important to pick an index that we all agree on and not necessarily get lost in the detail of, should it be 2, 2.5, 3, or some other number. I think a good example that this morning, Bill suggested taking an average of various different indices. I think that would work. I also think that if we pick something that everybody understands and seems to accept, which is the Social Security reported COLA, that would also be acceptable to me. So that's where I'm at.
So the Social Security COLA that they determine that is the CPI-W, not the CPI-U. And that right now, as of May 2024, it looks like about 3.5. But we're going to get a report for June tomorrow for some of these numbers too, to see how June came in. But I do say that based on what the Federal Reserve and other indexes are showing, they're saying the projection that inflation will start going down even more than it was.
Yes, but again, this is something I don't want to fall into a trap of trying to predict or project what inflation is going to be in the future. We know what it was last year. We know what the employees, as well as us, experienced. So if we observe historically what it was last year, apply that to next year's budget, it is lagging in some respects, which hurts employees, but it takes us out of the game of projections, which is something that I don't think we would be very good at, nor what we should be doing. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
So you're okay with, let's say, a 3.3% COLA or 3%?
I would be okay with whatever index we picked, whatever that reflects, or if it's an average, I would be comfortable with that, yes.
And if I could paraphrase the coroner, also in the earlier meeting, he did say that he believes it's important to stay competitive with the employees of the coroner's office. He said that earlier. So.
Okay. And it doesn't look like Mr. Kovacs is here.
I think he's on the line.
Baylor, are you on the phone?
I am, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. As I said this morning, we know, as we discussed in the elected officials meeting this morning, we know the consequences if we don't keep pace with the competitive market, the job market, and if employees are not happy or if they're not earning what they should earn, then they find jobs elsewhere. I respect the fact that determining a cost of living is entirely a Board of County Commissioners' decision. I have not done an analysis to figure out where we need to be to keep pace with inflation. I will defer to the board and to our clerk if that's what the clerk has done. But I do feel that if we don't consider a cost of living increase, then we will end up facing other issues down the road.
Thank you.
Where do you land?
Yeah. Well, I still have some cuts that I'd like to suggest to a couple different departments. And if those go through, then I think we can definitely do a 2.5% COLA with a 1% tax increase.
Which cuts would you like to make?
I want to discuss it with the departments first.
So are these electeds or are these
electeds?
electeds?
Well, whatever designee the elected wants to do.
Yeah.
So.
And what about capital? Do you want to have capital investments, start planning for that? Or is that something we're not going to do this year?
So I struggle with that because we don't have anything to show the public. We still have 5 to 7 million, I think, in that fund that we put aside for facilities. Is that right?
Your master plan fund balance? I can look it up. I think that range is right.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So if we, whatever the amount turns out to be with a 1% and, what's ever left over with the 2.5 COLA and the 1%, then we can use that to go towards that facilities thing. We're still looking at, potentially some return this year for FY24, return to fund balance. When we have that capital plan, then I'm more comfortable going to the public and saying, this is how much tax increase or impact fees or whatever it is that we need moving forward to implement that plan.
Well, we also have regular capital expenses, like cars, for example, and things like that, that I'm not sure that we're giving it the kind of attention, and so we're always kind of playing catch up. There's a couple of different factors really at play. The first one is that I do believe we need to get pay to where it's supposed to be for the job that people are doing. That the COLA should be reflective of getting the matrix to where it should be. That a person with 1 year or less of experience should be getting hired on a step 1 for that grade. The problem is that we're already paying for it, because I don't believe most of our hires with 0% or 0 years of experience are starting at a step 1. I believe they're starting at a step 2, 3, 4. We give them up to a 5. That the matrix is already obsolete. It just is. A few people get hired on a step 1, but most of it is, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And so what that really is saying is that in order for electeds to hire somebody, we actually have to break the matrix and go a step or 2 or 3 higher. The other problem is that, are they filling a slot with a live body, or are they filling it with a high-performing employee? And I think that the organization would be best served to have fewer positions and more high-performing people who are paid well. And the only issue with that is that we need to work together to make sure that the poor performers don't last, and that the high performers are recognized. But we will get a lot more productivity with a smaller government. And I'd like to see us start moving in that direction. The problem is that if we don't do any capital planning, meaningful, and we know that it's not just buildings. I mean, vehicles, the sheriff's office has gobs of stuff, that just expire. Vests, I believe, they expire. You got to buy new. They're expensive, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to make sure that we're planning for these things, and that we're not just digging into fund balance because we need them. 2, the way it's worked in the past is we see how much money comes back to us the following year, and that becomes our capital, our rainy day fund, if you will. It's just poor planning. We can't hope for these things. The interest will go down after next year, likely, the income, because we'll have less money to earn interest off of. So we can't plan for that. So I love the idea of you always like more detail, but the fact is we should be doing something at a bare minimum and then getting that detail as fast as we can. But I'm willing to bet that if we're depreciating $7 million worth of county assets in the last year, and we're talking about putting, what, 100,000, 200,000 for capital?
Whatever
is
it turns
that-
out to be.
Yeah, it's nothing in essence. That we're doing everybody in this county a disservice, because at some point we're either not going to have the money, we're going to have to go out for a bond, or we're going to start stacking people again in offices, and we're just going to be running amok in a sense. So I'd like to see us at least start considering that a little bit more. But as far as the COLA goes, I think the electeds have spoken. This is what they're saying they should have, with the exception of the assessor, although I expect that kind of an answer. and that we should be looking to try to get as close to that as we possibly can. But I'd like to see the things that you would like to cut, because I think that's important too.
I'll have that July 22nd.
And what about the one extra step for the sheriff's professional staff?
I'll let you answer that one first.
Well, the reality is that whenever you create situations where you're diminishing the size of the pool of applicants, by default, you end up having to pay a little bit more. And so in my mind, it makes perfect sense that if somebody can't pass a background check, you by default made the applicant pool smaller. And so in order to attract that person who can pass the background check, we need to pay a little bit more. And that's the way that kind of works. I've seen it in my business. If you can't pass if you don't have a good credit score, you know, it's kind of hard to argue why you should be managing people's money. You know, so you've reduced the size of the applicant pool, but you're asking to try to fill those positions with the same that some other place is paying, and they don't have to jump through all those hoops.
So what's the numbers? Because that wasn't included in the original ask,
Right.
correct?
I have
think it's
done
like
that
40,000.
since this morning's. It's about
Oh, I stand corrected, sorry.
That's okay. It's about $134,000 increase. So I have that scenario up on the screen. So if you were to do a 2.5% COLA countywide plus the one extra step for the sheriff's professional staff, starting at a 3% increase, you have a $1.1 million surplus. This is a 2% increase, 1.5% increase, and a 1% tax increase down to $74,000 in the hole. That's still before you decide if you're going to pass on health insurance costs to the employees, and if you are, how much.
Okay.
So I also have that document whenever you're ready to discuss
Yeah.
health insurance.
And I do think that we should ask for a larger contribution from the employees. You know, it's one thing to have the county pick up that cost. I think it's another where we start to share it. And just as well, if we can get this PMR clinic to really start to run on all of its cylinders, we might actually be able to start saving money. And I'm happy to entertain sharing some of that savings, you know, having that go back to the employees.
Right.
So if you increase the nicotine rate from $50 to $70 a month, that gives us $17,000 in savings. And then the highest, a 15% increase to the health, the highest increase to the employee, if you had a full family on our insurance, would be $37 a month. That would be the highest cost passed off per month to the employee. And that would give us a budget savings of $138,000.
I'd prefer to go with the lowest increase if we can manage it.
Okay, the 11% increase,
Yeah.
that would give us $101,000 in budget savings. The highest monthly increase to the employee would be $27 a month, and that's if they have a full family on our insurance.
Your thoughts?
At the very least, as long as there is some skin in the game. That's all I ask for, is that we have skin in the game on this one.
Okay, so I'm gonna tentatively budget the 11.1% increase for employees. And then for the nicotine, it's currently $50 a month. You could increase it to $60 or $70 a month. Any thoughts there?
So that would be essentially, if we went to 70, it's a $20 a month increase.
It's $70 a month.
But it's not increasing $70 a month, it's increasing
Oh, I'm sorry.
to $70.
Yes, it's increasing to
Yeah, it's
$60.
20
So it'd be a
bucks a month.
$20 a month increase, yes.
I think that's okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, $70 for the nicotine. Okay, I'll get that incorporated into the budget. Was there anything further do you want me to tentatively stick with the 2.5% COLA for now? Or do you want to go lower or higher?
Well, for me, besides the obvious, we don't want people to go backwards. And we have had a lot of increases in just our general goods. For me, I want it to be able to keep up with markets. So when we do our market study, we can actually afford to implement the market study. Because if we don't, and then we get too far behind, the market study comes out and we can't fund it. And then that's just another thing that, disenfranchises our workforce. Because they see, well, you did a market study, but you can't fund it, so what's the point? So that's why I like to have the COLAs each year to try to keep up with that. So when we do the wage study, we're not way behind, that we're more keeping up with. And again, we have to provide a service and it's a monopoly. And so it's hard to say, yeah, we're going to do step increases and COLAs to the general public, but I have to serve the general public. So although they may not be getting, raises in the private sector like that, I have to provide a service and we have to provide the best service possible because we're a monopoly. So that's where I'm at.
So is that yes for 2.5 right now?
Right now, yes, and depending on my conversations over the next week to July 22nd, I would go down to a 2% if we needed to, but at this point, I'm striving for 2.5.
Well, I agree with you conceptually, the fact that we don't want to get too far behind. I don't have a problem paying people well. My problem is paying people well who don't perform. And so I'd like to find ways where we can pay the people we have well, not rich, but well, within their sphere of work, their industry. Yep. But we should also be focusing heavily on getting rid of a lot of these positions that we just keep there. And they're used basically as a cushion. And we should start budgeting for what we need and not budgeting knowing that this money will be sitting there and we have these mid-years, I have salary savings, we never hired, we're going to spend this money on overtime or something else. It's sloppy budgeting. So I agree with you on that, and we should do that. And then the only other thing is I really hope that we can start developing metrics within different departments where we can do that, so we can start making data-driven decisions. We are going to have a little workshop, I think, with one of the community development towards the end of the month, I think it is. And I think some folks at the sheriff's office are going to come over. And I would welcome anybody else who wants to participate or watch to join so we can start looking at how to capture events, what events we want to capture, and then how we take that data and actually turn it into good information so we can make decisions. Because the more we can use data and information to make decisions, the easier it is for the public to understand the challenges that we face, not only up here, but for the other elected officials and their departments. So that's my hope, that we can get that done this year.
And then what about the one extra step for the professional staff at the sheriff's office? You want me to keep that in the budget for now or not?
I'm fine with that, given the nature that we're, by default, making the applicant pool smaller because of the more stringent criteria in order to hire somebody.
I don't have an opinion right now, so you can leave it in.
Okay, I'll just leave it to be determined then. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
I think we're on to public comment, aren't we? You're good.
Well, we got community development wanted to weigh in.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just wanted to bring something to your attention to hopefully not have to come before you again at a personnel meeting.
Save the meeting.
Yes. When we asked for the increase for the inspectors to go from a inspector to a senior, that was denied, and we're fine with that. But we also have done the work to reclassify to having a inspector 1, 2, and 3. There's no budget impact. Our senior inspectors would go to 3, our current inspectors would go to 2, and then when we hire again, we hire in at 1. So we just want approval to have those reclassifications.
And it's a zero impact to the budget as it is
Absolutely.
right now?
It's basically a title change with no increase in steps or
Their
fees.
grades are staying the same, right?
Everything's
So
staying the same,
You're
we
just
just-
changing the titles of their position.
Correct, and bringing in that lower tier.
So it's really a clarification.
So if I'm an inspector and I'm going from a 1 to a 2, and it's just a title change, no income, no,
Well, they are, because we only have 2 classifications. So we have the inspectors and senior inspectors. So their inspectors are going to be 2s, and the seniors are going to be 3s. So they're not getting promoted, they're just staying right there.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
What's driving it, just out of curiosity? What's driving this change?
To be able to promote, as people leave, you can promote a 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, kind of like the assessor's office do with their appraisers 1 through 3.
And just,
The opportunity for advancement.
sure. And is there credentialing that goes with each of these
Yes.
advancements? Okay.
Certifications.
Certifications that are International Council of Code.
Okay, and then now for the $64,000 question. Will you be able to hire an inspector level 1 at the pay rate that you are projecting it to be, or will you have to hire a level 1 at a level 2 because you can't attract quality applicants?
Probably the latter. I have a current day experience right now with a professional engineer, landscape architect, where after 9 months, I haven't had anyone meet the qualifications and accept our pay scale.
So are we really solving a problem here?
It's an issue. I don't have a good solution for that. At the moment, we just wanted to keep the nomenclature open so that people feel like they have the opportunity for advancement.
And if a person were to have the certifications, a new person, we could hire him in as a 2, because probably a 2 would have left, or we wouldn't be hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't have to hire as a 1 if they had come in
Right,
with
if they have the
certifications.
certs.
And then
Yeah.
we'd have the opportunity to, promote up if a 3 left.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's net neutral. You're not adding positions, right? So
No.
you're just basically changing the way
Yes,
you're
sir.
presenting them.
Yes, sir.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
I mean,
I don't see anything right now today. If I figure something out before July 22nd, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Anyone else for budget clarification? Bill, did you join us?
Yes, I got on about 3 minutes after the meeting started.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Well, you've heard of budget hawks and cutting this and cutting that. Right now, I'm the opposite when it comes to COLA. I think we should be doing a COLA in the area of 4% when you recognize what's happening in the economy, and that's just to keep the people that we have up to what their buying power is. Otherwise, they're sliding backwards, and we're going to go find ourselves right in the same situation that we were two years ago, and unable to keep people, unable to attract people. And I think that's demonstrated by the sheriff's success in hiring people and attracting applicants and retaining people. So it sounds like we've got time between now and July to talk about this, but I think getting good people, keeping good people, and making sure our good people are treated decently is the most important thing we can do.
Okay, thank you. Public comment?
Ron Hartman, thanks for the opportunity. First, I agree. You've got to pay the people. There's no doubt about it. And I agree with Mr. Matari that the high performers you need to take care of. I also agree with him that there's been a lot of sloppy accounting and the budget work. I watched the video yesterday of the status meeting. And I got to agree with Mr. Brooks, Bill Brooks, as far as this transportation center and where he stands with it and how that's a waste of money. And I agree with Commissioner Matari that a department of 6 people with 2 layers of management is absolutely ridiculous. This is a good example of waste, in my mind, in areas where you could find money to pay your people that deserve the money. And I think these organizations have way too much supervision, top-heavy probably, and that this one with the transportation center was just the tip of the iceberg. And I agree, I'd like to agree with Mr. Brooks that he wants to completely eliminate the transportation center, but we took federal money, so I don't know how you do that. But if there's a way to back out of that, I mean, nobody rides those buses. You want to talk about a place where you could save money and take that same money and give to the employees, there's a perfect example of it. Thank you.
Brandy, would you be able to get us the amount of tax dollars that's going towards transportation for FY25?
Yes, I can do that. Would you like prior years as well?
Sure.
I would argue you want to include all staff time to do the auditing of these grants and any other time that is taxpayer funded to support this department.
Okay. So there are some expenses that aren't directly coded to transit, but like my office spends a lot of time on those grants, so I'll just come up with an estimate probably of time that we spend on those and cost for the single audit.
Thank you. Any other public comment? On the telephone? Online? Nobody's online. Okay, 3:33, meeting adjourned.